Hey guys, Miss Thomas here, and I'm here to get you guys ready for the EOC. But stay calm, it's going to be simple. We're going to make it stress-free. We're going to focus one standard at a time, and we're going to focus on vocabulary. So it should be super easy for you, okay? Just stick with me, keep studying, and by the end, you're easily going to get a 5. Okay, so let's look at the first standard. Our first standard is Enlightenment Ideas, okay? So it's like the Enlightenment Philosophers. So first of all, what is enlightenment? Enlightenment is the idea that the light goes on. The Enlightenment idea is that the light goes on for man. We enter into an age of reason where things are no longer explained by superstition, but by science. Okay, and there were all kinds of different Enlightenment philosophers that we're going to talk about. But the main ones that this standard tells you have to focus on are Montesquieu and Locke, and how they influenced the founding fathers. So you have to know who they are too. They're the guys who wrote the Declaration of Independence, wrote the Constitution, kind of the basis of all of our government comes from these guys. That's why they're called the fathers, right? Founding, like foundation, what everything is built off of. Okay, you've got it. No worries. Okay, so the first word or definition that we're going to focus on is called enlightenment. Okay, and the official definition of enlightenment is a period in European history when many educated people stressed the importance of learning and reasoning. Education was considered the key to understanding and solving society's problems. So this is this age of reason in Europe. So everything is explained by science instead of by superstition. So Sir Isaac Newton is sitting under the tree, the apple hits him in the head, he goes, oh, it must be gravity, not, oh, I must have done something to anger the gods, so they dropped an apple on me, like they would have said in ancient Greece or ancient Rome, right? A little different, new way of thinking during that time period. And how did that apply to actual government ideas? Well, they took this age of reason into government. Mainly the 3 philosophers that did this were these guys. Okay, so we've got Locke, Montesquieu, and Rousseau. Okay, so Locke is on the left. He mostly talked about the social contract, which we're going to study in a little bit, and he also talked about your natural rights, and he called your natural rights life, liberty, and property. He's going to influence Jefferson, Declaration of Independence. Then we have Montesquieu. Montesquieu believed in the separation of powers. He's going to mostly influence Madison in the Constitution. And then we have Rousseau. Rousseau's not going to be on the end of course exam. He's more of a high school philosopher that you're going to study, but he studied some of the same things that Locke and Montesquieu studied, and it was also an Enlightenment philosopher. But don't worry about him. He's not going to be on the EOC. I've checked. All right, so these are the founding fathers. These are the people that were influenced. So we have, starting in the upper left-hand corner, should look familiar to you. You probably know who he is. Benjamin Franklin, to the right of him. George Washington, to the right of him. John Adams. On the bottom right, we have Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, most influenced by Locke. Next to him, we have Madison, who wrote the Constitution, most influenced by Montesquieu. Then we have Alexander Hamilton. Wait, what did I say? Alexander Hamilton. My name is... You said it, Alexander Hamilton. Yes, the musical. I won't sing, I promise. You'll run if I do. If my son was here, he could sing for you, but he's not tonight. I'll get him to sing for you another night. And then finally we have John Jay. Not as heard of, but also one of the main founding fathers. So these are the guys that are influenced by those philosophers, if you look back at the standard. So the founding fathers, the representatives of the 13 colonies who participated in the writing of the Declaration of the Independence and the U.S. Constitution. And that is one of your vocabulary words. Okay, so the next vocabulary word is natural law. Natural law is also called the law of nature. Okay, so here we have the law of nature down at the bottom. And then built on top of that, we have the Constitution. And then built on top of that, we have our local, county, state, and federal government. So it is the basis of all of our government. So it's pretty important that we understand what they mean when they say natural law. Well, pretty simple definition are laws passed by governments to protect natural rights. So a little bit more complex or in-depth definition is when you take the word natural law and you divide it into its parts. Natural means coming from a higher power, they would call, during that time period, God. And law, meaning it cannot be changed. So there are certain things that are on earth that man did not create. So in their opinion, since man didn't create it, man shouldn't be able to take it away. So it should be a right that is inherent, unalienable, you may have heard that, immutable, it's used here, unable to change, unable to take from you. Okay, so what are our individual rights? Or individual liberties is the word that you have to define. Individual liberties is a person's ability to be free and independent. Freedom and liberty, right? So life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that's what shows up in the Declaration of Independence. Locke actually called it life, liberty, and property. These were things that were not given to you by man. They were given to you by, in their opinion, God. So therefore, cannot be taken from you by man. You are entitled to them. They are your rights. Okay, so social contract. See the two hands shaking? It's like I give you something, you give me something, we agree on this thing. So Locke had this idea of a social contract. It's pretty in-depth. This is something I want you to memorize, no matter what you have to do. We're going to go over in class, and we're going to use kinesthetic symbols to memorize this. I really want you to pay attention to what those are and making sure that you remember this and you understand this and you can repeat it back to me. Because if you understand this, you're going to do so well on the end of course exam. It's really, really important. Put a big star by this in your binder. Make sure you get it. So the definition of social contract is an implied agreement among people and of an organized society that defines the rights, duties, and limitations of the government, governed and the government. So this is how I describe it in class. It's the idea that Locke came up with where he said, look, power doesn't come from people. Power comes from God. And God gives that power to the people. So reach up to the heavens and touch your shoulder. Power comes from God. God gives power to the people. Okay? Touch your shoulders. All right? People give power to the government. So we want to be ruled. We don't want anarchy. We don't want, if somebody else breaks the law, then if we break a law, then somebody else can break a law, then we're not safe. So we want the government to protect us. So we give our power to the government. So the people give power to the government. Now, in exchange for that, we think that the government should protect our individual rights. So we wiggle fingers like this. Individual. Yes, I'm crazy. It's okay. You're going to remember. Individual rights. Okay. So what does Locke say individual rights are? He says they are life, liberty, and property. And Jefferson says they are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Then Locke says if the government doesn't do that, if they don't, then the people should take that power back and form a new government. So you can actually dab right there if you want to. Go ahead. Form a new government, okay? So this is Locke's idea. Look, power comes from God. We have a right to certain things, an inalienable right. They cannot be taken away. So if government is not protecting those individual rights, then you have a right to form a different government that will protect your rights. So that's the whole idea of the social contract. That's what's used when they write the Declaration of Independence. That's how they justify overthrowing the king, which is against the law. Yes, they were outlaws. They could have gone to jail or been hung.
Okay, so today we're going to review our kinesthetic symbols, and we're going to be talking about John Locke's theory on the social contract. Okay, so in order to understand the social contract, it helps if we memorize it first. So let's go ahead and start with our kinesthetic symbols. Do y'all remember?
God gives power to the people gives power to the government. It's the government's job to protect your individual rights. If they don't, you should take your power back and form a new government.
Thank you. Good job, guys.
Okay, so once they get that new government established, they're very worried about corruption. That is like their main concern. They do not want this new government to end up like the old government and the king who abused their rights. So Montesquieu has this idea that Benjamin Franklin said, if power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? So Montesquieu says, hey, look, if we take the power and we divide it into smaller parts, it's going to be hard for the people in charge to abuse the individuals. And therefore, the individuals can keep those individual rights that we were talking about, the life, liberty, and property. So let's divide the power up into groups, okay? And so he came up with the idea that most governments that worked in the world at that time, and he studied all the governments in the world at that time, most of them that worked well and protected the people had a legislative branch, an executive branch, and a judicial branch. So he wanted to divide those. We're going to study this a lot more in class. The 3 circles represent the 3 different branches of government, and the arrows in between represent how one branch stops another branch from abusing the people or from making forward progress. So if one branch is trying to abuse the people, the other 2 branches have an opportunity to stop them in that process. So we're going to talk a lot more about this in class. This is the basis of the whole test. It all boils down to this idea that we created a government where we were trying to avoid corruption. So that's it for tonight. I'm going to have Ricky come in and give you guys a few tips, a few things to think about, and some talking points. But other than that, that's a wrap. So I hope you guys are having a great night, and make sure you study these vocabulary words for your test. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Hey everyone, it's Ricky, and I'm here to help you guys out today to understand all the weird things coming out of my mother's mouth, because I know she's a little weird, a little crazy, right? Let's be real, she's a little crazy, but that's okay. I love her, you know, everything, it'll be alright. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. So first things first, what I think is most important are a separation of powers. So there are 3 branches of government. There are legislative, executive, and judicial. And each branch has checks and balances on the other branches to make sure that no one person or group of people have too much power, right? Make sure everything's nice and equal, that everyone's playing fair, all right? And next, for Enlightenment ideas, all you really have to know is that people started to step away from superstition, things like gods and ghosts, and they started to embrace things more reasonable, kind of like science.
That's what Ricky thinks. What do you think?
What do you think is most important about the Enlightenment philosophers?
Talking points. Ask your mom and dad.
What are the 3 branches of government in the U.S.?